Very good evening and welcome. This is Weekend Primetime News here on MTV Sports and Shakti TV. I'm Ramesh Bandara. As always, let's start off with a look at your headlines.
Dialogue in Parliament over Muslim Administrative District.
මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ඉන්න ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ අමාත්‍යවරු පස්තෙනෙක් මේ පරිපාලන දිස්ත්‍රික්කේ අපි හදලා දෙන්නම් කියලා අපිට පොරොන්දු දුන්නා.
ඒ නිසා ඒ සඳහා පරිපාලනමය යම්කිසි පියවරක් ගත්තොත් හොඳයි කියන මගේ මතය තියෙනවා.
The High Commissioner for Human Rights has denigrated a democratically elected government. Ravinatha Arya Singha responds to UN Human Rights Chief's criticisms. Revelations on a number of irregular transactions at Sipetco. Search operation at the scene of the Koslanda tragedy to be called off. BJP national spokesperson says post-colonial nations must achieve democracy, gender equality, economic equity and freedom of faith.
ඇවිල්ලාවරුත් නැහැ ඇමතිවරුත් නැහැ නායකතුමත් නැහැ නියෝජ්‍ය නායකතුමත් නැහැ අනේ අපෝ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයට වෙච්ච දේ
නිමා සිරිපාල්සිල ඇමතුමා උඩ බලාගෙන කට ඇරගෙන නිදි
සමහර වෙලාවට දිගට කතා කරනකොට ඒ අය නින්ද යනවා
ඒ අය තමයි
President Mahinda Rajapaksa says that there is no political party which can achieve as strong a female base as the Sri Lanka Freedom Party has. The president made this statement at an event held at Temple Trees this morning.
About 5,000 female representatives of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party attended the meeting held at Temple Trees. What is the greatest strength of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party? Our women. I don't think that any other political party in the country has managed to achieve as strong a female base as we have. We accept that whether it is canvassing for votes in a village or whether it is rallying people for the convention, it is the women that do most of the work for the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. I believe this country received universal enfranchisement in 1931 and since then, women have been directly involved in politics and we have elected women leaders. In 1960, it was the Sri Lanka Freedom Party that introduced the world's first woman Prime Minister, Sirimao Bandaranaike. The women have placed their trust in us.
As you saw a short while ago, in Parliament today, Deputy Speaker Chandu Virakudi criticised the relevant ministers and MPs for their absence from the chamber during question and answer sessions.
ඇවිල්ලාවරුත් නැහැ ඇමතිවරුත් නැහැ දෙපාර්ශ්වයම අහන අයත් එන්න ඕන උත්තර දෙන අයත් එන්න ඕන කියලා මම තීන්දුව කරනවා නායකතුමත් නැහැ නියෝජ්‍ය නායකතුමත් නැහැ තුන්වෙනි නායකතුමත් නැහැ අනේ අපෝ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයට වෙච්ච දේ වැඩ බලන නායකතුමාට විතරයි UNP අල්ලගෙන ඉන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රධාන කටයුතු ආරම්භයේදී යෝජනා නැත්තම් චන්ද්‍රිකා මෙතන ඒකතු කරු සභානායකතුමා ඒකයි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ සභානායකතුමා කරුණාකරලා නිශ්ශබ්ද වෙන්න දැන් වැඩේ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ නෑ ටික දෙනෙක් කිටියට සද්ද වැඩි අද කවුරුත් නෑ නමුත් සද්ද වැඩි.
The Sri Lanka Muslim Congress's demand for a new administrative district in the east was discussed in Parliament today.
In truth, this is not a proposal that was put forward by the Muslim Congress. The Morogoro Commission, appointed in 1978 by then-President J.R. Jayawardena, made this recommendation. 2 years ago, during discussions on establishing the Eastern Provincial Council, 5 senior ministers in this government promised us that they would give us this administrative district. All decisions that we take must be in the direction of fostering unity between the Sinhala, Tamil and Muslim communities in the country. If we accept a Muslim administrative district in another province, then we will have to accept Sinhala administrative districts in all the other provinces. I reiterate that it was not us, but the Morogoro Commission that recommended this. Practically, there are inconveniences that are being faced by Muslims living in areas of Ampara in the eastern province. This is because they have to come to Ampara to conduct their affairs. I too am of the opinion that there should be an administrative decision here to enable them to conduct affairs in the Tamil language.
Speaking in Parliament yesterday, MP Anukumar Dissanayake commented on irregular transactions at the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation.
අපේ රට ශරීරයක් නම් ඒ ශරීරයේ තියෙන රුධිර සංසරණ පද්ධතිය හා සමානයි තෙල් සංස්ථාව. නමුත් අවාසනාවකට ඇති වී තිබෙන තත්ත්වය තමයි.
If our country is likened to a human body, then the Petroleum Corporation is a blood circulation system. Unfortunately, the Petroleum Corporation today has earned a reputation in the media and among the people for being able to generate major news reports. Some time ago, it was the hedging deal. When we made submissions in Parliament regarding the hedging deal, they said there is nothing to be afraid of and that they haven't paid a cent. What is the current situation?
අද මොකද්ද තත්ත්වය? 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 කියන.
In the 5 years from 2009 to 2013, we have spent $4,428,998 on legal fees over the hedging deal. When looking at the payments we have made and the payments we are yet to make, it amounts to $147.68 million. How much is that in rupees? We will have to pay over 19 billion rupees. If we round it up, the country has lost 20 billion rupees because of the hedging deal. What decision has been taken? Have they succeeded in punishing anyone? We wouldn't have a problem if you are selling your coconut estates to pay this, but this is the wealth of the people. It is 20 billion rupees of public funds earned by the taxes paid by the people on diesel, petrol and kerosene. The chairman is not to be found. Not even a statement has been recorded at the very least. An official at the time has been caught and sent on compulsory leave. That is the punishment they have given. Compulsory leave. He gets a wage, a vehicle, fuel and an official residence. So who is being punished? The Petroleum Corporation. It is not only that, the pipeline carrying oil from the port to Colonnava had been dysfunctional for a while. In this transaction, there was a selected company owned by a selected individual. Shouldn't we have justifiable suspicion that thievery has occurred here? 13 come forward and 5 are selected. And the 3 people from the Technical Assessment Committee say, give it to all 5 of them. Even after that, the job is a failure and they shut it down. Then they call on the same company again and the job is a failure. A cabinet paper is introduced to select the same company over and over again. 250 million has been allocated for publicity expenditure for the Petroleum Corporation. Why do they need millions? Do they need advertisements to sell fuel?
ගෙනෙන නල පද්ධතිය කාලයක් තිස්සේ අක්‍රිය වෙලා තිබුණා. ටෙන්ඩර් කැඳවීමක් කරනු ලැබුවා. 13ක් එනවා. 5 දිනේ තෝරගන්නවා. තාක්ෂණික ඇගීම් කටින් 3 දිනක් එනවා. ඒ 5 දිනාම ගන්න කියනවා. 5 දිනාම ගත්තත් මේගොල්ලෝ අසාර්ථක වෙනවා. අසාර්ථක වුණාට පස්සේ ඒකයි වහනවා. නැවත නැවත කැඳවීමේ අයිතියක් දෙනවා. ඒකෙනුත් මේ සමාගම එනවා. ඊට පස්සෙත් නැවත මේක අසාර්ථක වෙනවා. නැවත කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් එනවා. එකම සමාගම තෝරාපත් කරගෙන ඉලක්ක කරන සාධාරණ සැකයක් හිතෙන්නේ නැද්ද මෙතන හොරකමක් තියෙනවා කියලා. තෙල් සංස්ථාවේ ප්‍රචාරක වියදම් හැටියට කෝටි 25ක් වෙන් කරගෙන තිබෙනවා. කෝටි මොකටද මේ තෙල් විකුණන්න දැන්වීම දාන්න ඕනද? බෙහෙත් ගන්නවා වගේ මිනිස්සු ගන්නවනේ ඕක.
Speaking during the debate on the expenditure heads of the Ministry of Education this evening, UNP MP Sudhiva Senasinghe expressed the following views.
Minister, take a look at the Grade 5 scholarship. I have constantly debated with you over why a child who excelled in the Grade 5 scholarship examination cannot change from one government school to another. Now, if our ministers here can get elected through a democratic election and then switch parties and get a ministerial position, after carrying out such slimy acts, disregarding policies and the people just to save their skin, why have you taken away the opportunity for a child in a rural area to switch to a good school like Royal or Ananda? When I went to Trincomalee, Minister, I stopped my jeep at a shop and I saw a mother eating with her 2 children. The elder one must have been around 8. They were eating just rice and brinjals with a tiny piece of fish. And they were enjoying this meal. My elder brother and his 2 children who had just come down from England were also with me at the time. His children are medical students and I told them this is how children live here in this country. This is how every child is living in this country, Minister. What is being done in the country? You boast of the Hambantota port, the Sampur power plant and even Norachole.
මේම තමයි රටේ හැම දරුවම ජීවත් වෙන්නේ හැමතුමනි මොනවද මේ කරන්නේ මගඩි වැඩ රටේ හම්මන්තර වරාය කියනවා සාම්පූර් විදුලි බලාගාරය කියනවා නොරොච්චෝල කියනවා ගහන එකයි කරන්නේ.
The debate on the expenditure heads of the Ministry of Public Administration and Home Affairs was taken up in Parliament this morning. UNP parliamentarian Ajit P. Pereira opened the debate.
ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා
During His Excellency the President's budget speech, our Prime Minister was fast asleep. At the same time, Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva was also fast asleep with his mouth open. We have seen members of this House fall asleep during speeches on countless occasions. Then I agree to the fact that members of parliament fall asleep in the chamber when something important is happening. When you speak here, you speak as if you are going to distribute motorbikes to everyone. However, when the circular is issued, it is only a few policemen that receive them.
On to our developing story tonight, a decision has been taken to call off the search operation for those missing in the Koslanda landslide within the next 2 days.
Where muddy water flowed at the landslide site in Koslanda, there now flows a fresh stream of water thanks to the efforts of the armed forces during the 11-day search operation. The armed forces are now restoring the Koslanda-Punagala road, which falls across Mediabadda.
කොස්ලන්ද ඉඳලා පූනාගලට යන්න තියෙන මාර්ගය තමයි මේ යලි සකස් කරමින් තිබෙන්නේ.
This is the road that once connected Koslanda and Punagala, which is currently being renovated. This road was blanketed by the landslide which occurred in Mediabadda. This morning, heavy-duty vehicles were used to remove the soil. Furthermore, search operations continued for the 11th day, and this is the current situation in Koslanda.
කොස්ලන්ද මීරියබැද්ද ප්‍රදේශයේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වන 11 වෙනි දිනේ සොයාගැනීමේ මෙහෙයුමුත් අද දවසේදී මෙලෙස ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙමින් තිබෙන අයුරු අපට දක්නට ලැබුණා. මම නිව්ස්ෆර්ස්ට්.lk අශේන් තාරක කොස්ලන්ද මීරියබැද්ද ප්‍රදේශයේ සිට.
The horrors of the landslide still remain stuck in the minds of those who bore the brunt of this tragedy. In search operations conducted today, relief teams were able to recover cooking equipment from houses buried under the rubble. 14 bodies have been pulled out of the rubble so far. Minister of Disaster Management Mahinda Amaravira visited the Punagala Tamil College, which is providing shelter to the displaced. Here, the people had urged the minister that search operations for those buried under the rubble be called off.
ඒ අයගෙන් අපි විමසා සිටියේ මොන ඊළඟ අවශ්‍යතාවය කුමක්ද කියලා ඒ අයගේ
We asked them what their other requirements were. They clearly stated that there is no point in searching for their relatives anymore. Because they are beyond recognition, it only worsens their misery. So we will heed their request and we hope to call off the operation following discussions with the army. Moreover, we also plan to carry out a meritorious deed on behalf of them on the 13th of this month.
මෙහෙයුම් මේ අයගේ ඉල්ලීම් මත නතර කරන්න ඒ වගේම ඒ අය වෙනුවෙන් පින්කමක් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා 13 වෙනිදා.
News First made inquiries from Security Forces Commander Central, Major General Manu Pereira, who is coordinating the search operation.
As a result of the requests made by the members of the families, we may consider calling off the search operations in a day or two. However, we would progress with the search operations to see whether we could recover any further bodies, and then we would decide as to whether we should call off or otherwise.
During his visit to Punagala, Minister Amaravira said that the people will be given permanent residences and the necessary household equipment. He added that a special program is to be implemented for the children.
We have taken full responsibility of the children who are orphaned. For the other children, we will put forward a scholarship scheme and have also opened bank accounts for these families. We have already opened accounts with a deposit of 25,000 rupees each. The government also plans to grant an additional fund for these people.
The minister also inspected the building in the Markanda area in Punagala, which is under renovation to provide temporary shelter to those currently housed at the Punagala Tamil College.
The Department of Meteorology has forecast fair weather conditions for the days to come. However, it added that cool weather conditions could be experienced during the nights and early morning. Meanwhile, 8 locations which are at a major risk of landslides have been identified in the Nuwara district.
The Elamulla, Dianilla, Mulhal Calais, Dunsinane, Scene Estate, Q Estate, Unit View and Ruan Alley Estate areas have been identified as major landslide prone areas. Nuwara District Secretary DPG Kumarasiri said that over 1,800 people of 348 families in these areas have now been relocated to 22 temporary shelters.
Developing Story, brought to you by
the all-new smart refrigerators with a 10-year warranty from Samsung.
Welcome back to the news. Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, Rabinath Arisinghe, says the High Commissioner for Human Rights has chosen to cast aspersions and denigrate a democratically elected government. He made this statement in a letter addressed to Prince Zaid Rad Al Hussein in response to a news release issued by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights yesterday, where the High Commissioner criticized continuing attacks by the Sri Lankan government on the integrity of the officer's ongoing investigation.
In the letter, Ambassador Arisinghe writes that it is extremely regrettable that a news release should have been issued on this matter attributed personally to the High Commissioner, questioning the integrity of the government of a sovereign nation, which has been a member of the United Nations since 1955. He notes that it is unfortunate that the news release has been issued without making any attempt to understand the context or content apparent from the media release of the Ministry of External Affairs dated 5th November 2014. He writes, quote, "In fact, the OHCHR has been inept in comprehending for reasons best known to it the thrust of the concerns expressed by the government of Sri Lanka related to the flawed procedure of the OHCHR investigation on Sri Lanka." Unquote. Ambassador Arisinghe says that the government of Sri Lanka made no attempt whatsoever to prevent bona fide witnesses from submitting information to the investigation team, and neither was any attempt made to deter and intimidate individuals from submitting evidence. He adds that the submissions that the investigation would have received by now would stand to prove this fact. Furthermore, Arisinghe notes that the government's categorical rejection of the investigation established by the Human Rights Council is not tantamount to concealing information. He states that the government of Sri Lanka has steadfastly maintained that it owes to the country's dignity not to subject its people to an investigation that does not conform to even the minimum requisites of justice and fair play. Ambassador Arisinghe adds, quote, "It is a matter of deep concern to note that you, as a high official of the UN system, have resorted to the use of intemperate language to attack and vilify a sovereign member of the United Nations. Further, you have chosen to cast aspersions and denigrate a democratically elected government." Unquote.
The JVP has resolved to adopt an alternative course of action in the face of the silence maintained by the authorities over the Geneva Gate controversy.
The document obtained by Ture Raja has come to the Ministry of External Affairs, and the minister brings this document to Parliament and tables it in an attempt to whitewash Ture Raja and absolve him of any affiliation with the LTTE. This is a serious matter. If the Ministry of External Affairs intervened to obtain this document, we have called on Minister J.L. Peiris already to immediately produce the letter sent by the ministry to the Swiss Federal Police. Produce the letter reportedly sent by the mission requesting this clarification. Since he has opted to produce the document obtained by Ture Raja and whitewash him instead of doing anything else, it is a very serious matter. This audit report speaks of an 18 million rupee fraud. It alleges affiliations with the LTTE. We will take steps to hand over this report to the Criminal Investigations Department next week. Not only will we submit this report, we will also call on the CID to investigate how Minister J.L. Peiris came by this document that could only be procured by Ture Raja and how he brought this to Parliament.
Speaking in the Newsfirst yesterday, Pierre Beynet, a prominent Swiss lawyer, informed us that the document tabled by Minister of External Affairs Professor J.L. Peiris in Parliament recently, claiming that the individual known as P.T. Ture Raja has no affiliation with the LTTE, would not contain any information on ongoing investigations into Ture Raja.
A memorial lecture on the occasion of the 125th birth anniversary of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was held in Colombo yesterday. Speaking at the lecture, national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, journalist, author and former member of India's Lok Sabha, M.J. Akbar, said that the greatest challenge post-colonial nations face is the challenge of modernity.
What then is our challenge? I tell you, the challenge before India and the challenge before all of us in the post-colonial world is what I call the challenge of modernity. We seek to become modern nation states. Now comes a difficult bit. This sounds good. Yeah, modernity, of course. Who can argue with modernity? But what is modernity? The four pillars of modernity are this: democracy. You cannot be a modern nation anymore without democracy and without political freedom and equality of individuals, irrespective caste, creed, color, whatever. You cannot be a modern nation today without gender equality. You have to have gender equality. Without it, you actually be economically unproductive also. You must have freedom of faith. The secularism of our countries is very different from European secularism. For us, Secularism is the equality of every faith before the law. And not only before the law, before society. And fourth, most important, perhaps, there is nothing called economic equality. There never was, there never is. But there is something called economic equity. The poor must feel that they are part of the narrative of rising India, or rising Sri Lanka, or rising Bangladesh, or rising anywhere. And if we do not make an economy for the poor, then we have made an economy for no one. We have to lift and eliminate. Poverty and modernity cannot coexist.
The growth of these Hindu-Lanka relations under stress. We learn from the past, not only the right things, we learn even from the mistakes when we are reforming our future agenda. However, the truth is actually the integration as a region has performed slowly. We are still closer to the West than to each other in terms of our economic relations. The integration is necessary, and integration should happen because it derives mutual benefits, even giving answers to some of those problems of underdevelopment, as Mr. Akbar mentioned, the poverty, unemployment.
Large number of buses were seen on the roads of Colombo today, transporting people to a certain event.
The buses were also seen flying banners proclaiming the 2014 National Convention of the Rotary Row organization. The banners also list the Foreign Employment Services Bureau and the Ministry of Foreign Employment Promotion and Welfare as the organizers. Speaking about the use of buses in this fashion to transport people to the event, the president of the Lanka Private Bus Owners Association, Gamanu Wijeratna, had this to say. Over 100 state-owned buses were brought to Colombo today for the Rotary Row event. I think this was wrong. It is saddening that public funds are being wasted in this way for such endeavours. The state bus service receives about 4 billion rupees of public funds per annum. It is extremely disgraceful to use this money for political activities, especially now when there is an impending election. We will take major steps in the very near future against the misuse of state bus services for election propaganda and the misuse of public funds.
In more local news tonight, Secretary to the President Lalit Veeratunga says that regardless of how sophisticated technology is, it could never replace great teaching. He made this statement while addressing the annual International Conference for Heads of Schools organized by the International Schools of Sri Lanka, or TISSL.
The three-day conference titled Managing Change in Schools, which commenced in Kandy yesterday, saw the participation of a distinguished gathering inclusive of local and foreign educationists. Day one of the conference yesterday was attended by Presidential Secretary Lalit Veeratunga and Chief Minister of the Central Province Sarath Ekanayaka.
With all the changes around us, with the profound influence of technology, we need to question ourselves whether the time has come to revisit the education of the past. The use of touchpads, calculators and computers are good, but have they pushed our kids back in certain aspects? Are the digital natives lost on the information highway with no sense of imagination that is fostered with literary education? Are our students losing their identity, not knowing what their roots are? And is the society deteriorating with loss of values, as not enough is done at home and in school for the character formation of the child?
The information empowerment of students through technology brings a new dimension to the student-teacher relations. On the one hand, no matter how sophisticated the technology will be, I believe they could never replace great teaching. The source of information needs to be verified. But most children don't do that today. They just go to Google, they just go to Wikipedia and take it as gospel truth, which I think we need to discourage and tell them, look, please check the veracity of these things. Not all teachers are ready to embrace using ICTs in the classroom. I don't know about the international schools, probably to a lesser extent, but certainly to a great extent in the government schools. And that's a problem for us. However much one may hesitate to admit it, there is a feeling of a subtle battle between the teacher and the technology to win the student over. Both of these are equally powerful forces. And it is the complementarity between the two that will have a beneficial outcome for the student.
On day 2 of the conference held today, Secretary to the Ministry of Education, Anwar Dissanayake, expressed the following views.
Accelerating education improvement requires a holistic approach that addresses critical and interrelated components of education transformation. Governments are finding that no single policy, pedagogy or technology will bring this change. Education transformation is achieved by bringing together the right decision makers, experts, educators and partner organizations to plan, promote and provide the essential components impacting quality of education practices.
Biz First, brought to you by
High flyers of the Grade 5 Scholarship Exam. Apply now. Sri Lanka Insurance Subapatham Scholarship.
Democratic Party Western Provincial Councillor Susil Kinelpiti attended a public lecture held in the Paduke area today.
You cannot identify a politician. You can only identify them if you work with them. When the same government rules for around 20 years, people get frustrated. This is a lesson we have learned from the world. The question here is, why hasn't this transpired in Sri Lanka? The answer is clear. These rulers who took over the country in 1994 have managed to hold on to power by hook or by crook. People are suffering, and here they are speaking of a presidential election. They are talking about a common candidate. We are in a country where they cannot even select a common candidate.
2 people were killed in a motor accident last night involving a motorbike and a lorry close to the Machanpete junction in Suryavala.
The office of the police media spokesperson said that the accident took place when a motorbike collided into a lorry plying from Suryavala to Padangala when the lorry took a left turn. The rider and pillion rider sustained serious injuries and died en route to hospital. The victims have been identified as a 38-year-old father of 2 and a 36-year-old father of 3, both residents of Suryavala. The driver of the lorry who was arrested was produced before the acting magistrate of Hambantota today.
On to news overseas, the White House says that the US is to send 1,500 more non-combatant troops to Iraq to boost Iraqi forces fighting Islamic State militants. The 1,500 troops will join several hundred military advisors that are already in Iraq to assist the country's army. The Pentagon said the troops would train and assist Iraqi forces.
Chief has authorized Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel to deploy to Iraq up to 1,500 additional U.S. personnel over the coming months in a non-combat role to expand our advise and assist mission and initiate a comprehensive training effort for Iraqi forces. Ultimately, these Iraqi forces, when fully trained, will enable Iraq to better defend its citizens, its borders, and its interests against the threat of ISIL, and it is perfectly in keeping with the mission that we've been assigned there to assist the ISF and Peshmerga forces, again, as they improve their capability against ISIL.
Connell as well, sir.
The announcement came hours after Obama met congressional leaders in Washington for the first time after the Republicans won control of the Senate in Tuesday's elections. Meanwhile, U.S. National Security Advisor Susan Rice said yesterday the United States is not engaged in military coordination with Iran in countering Islamic State forces in the Middle East, following reports that President Barack Obama had written a letter to Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei describing a shared interest in fighting Islamic State.
We are in no way engaged in any coordination, military coordination with Iran on countering ISIL. The fact of the matter is that ISIL poses a threat not only to the people of Iraq and Syria, but to the broader region and to the United States and to Europe. And we are dealing with that threat, but we are not doing so in coordination with the government of Iran. Through labor force participation.
According to the Wall Street Journal, the letter in mid-October said cooperation between the United States and Iran on combating the militant group was tied to a deal being reached between Iran and other nations on its nuclear program.
Mexican Attorney General Jesus Murillo has said suspected gang members have confessed to killing more than 40 students missing for more than 6 weeks.
He said 3 alleged gang members claimed the students were handed over to them by police. He said that some were already asphyxiated and they shot the others dead before setting fire to all the bodies. A total of 43 students went missing after clashing with police on the 26th of September in the town of Iguala. The suspects from the Guerreros Unidos drug gang were recently arrested in connection with the disappearances. Relatives of the missing said they had been told that 6 bags of unidentified human remains had been found along a river near where the students vanished. Murillo warned that it would be difficult to identify the charred remains and that authorities would continue to consider the students as missing until DNA tests confirm the identities.
British police have arrested 4 men on suspicion of preparing acts of terrorism as part of an investigation into Islamist-related militancy.
The men aged 19, 22, 25 and 27 were arrested in West London and in High Wycombe, to the west of the capital, on Thursday night and Friday morning. Armed officers were also present for 2 of the other arrests, but no shots were fired. The men are now being questioned at a police station in central London, and several homes and vehicles were being searched. No further details were immediately available. The arrests are the latest in a series to have been carried out by British counter-terrorism officers since the country's threat level was raised to its second highest level in August due to the risk posed by Islamic State fighters returning from Iraq and Syria.
This guy was a nice guy. We used to go to school together. We've been playing football, a lot of that. He was a really nice guy. I don't understand why they're going around, raiding his house. This second time it's happening. A few months back they done the same thing, and this is what I don't understand why they're trying to demonize us. That's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to demonize us.
The White House says US President Barack Obama has chosen New York federal prosecutor Loretta Lynch to replace Eric Holder as US Attorney General,
as well as for his membership in the International...
If the Senate confirms her appointment, Lynch will be the first African-American woman to head the U.S. Justice Department. Holder, who resigned from the post 6 weeks ago, was the first African-American to serve as Attorney General. The White House said Lynch would be formally nominated today. Correspondents say Lynch, aged 55, is known for a low-key personality and has stirred little controversy during her 2 tenures as a U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York.
Getting back to more local news, speaking in Monragala yesterday, United National Party parliamentarian Ranjit Madhum commented on how certain members of the UNP are preparing to cross over.
Today the government is trying to bribe UNPers to cross over to the government. Why is the government trying to do this? If they have the vision that they are going to triumph anyway, why try to bribe UNP members to cross over? Don't worry though, no one is leaving the party. When the election date is announced, we will put forward a common candidate from the UNP as well as a common party candidate.
The
current leader of the UNP, who has used tricks to retain power so far, has seen those tricks backfire. It was he that brought outsiders into the UNP to retain his power and position. It was he that evicted people from within the party. It was he that created internal conflicts and sought to divide and rule. It was he that prevented the second tier from coming into leadership. Although all of this was achieved through the Malik-Ranil partnership, now, a conspiracy to remove him from the presidential candidacy. His closest friends, who were brought into the party by him, have turned against him. These conspirators, who are his friends, have no voter base. This is only another conspiracy to weaken the opposition. Having discarded him, a search is now underway for a common candidate. No matter what manner of tricks he employed to retain his position within the party, today the leader has been blinded before his own friends. Only little Premadasa, who received stepmotherly treatment thus far, remains to rescue the leader. Why did this fate befall the leader? More tomorrow. Let's get ready for an election. UN peers, let us rise.
On to sports news now. Havelock Sports Club beat CRNFC 17-12 in the Inter-Club Rugby League tournament today. Meanwhile, Navy Sports Club mauled the Police Sports Club 64-24 at the game played at the police grounds today. At Lemons, Navy were in front with the scoreboard reading 38-12. Navy continued to score points in the second half, scoring 26 to the Police Sports Club's 12. Navy scored 10 tries in their 64-24 demolition of the Police Sports Club. The Badminton Association of Malaysia has confirmed the B sample of one of their national team members returned a positive test for a banned substance but declined to identify the player. Badminton Malaysia Deputy President Nozra Zakari said in a statement, with the due process taking place, they are still not at liberty to reveal the name of the player.
The letter dated 7 November from BWF informing the result of the testing for sample B. The result of the testing confirms the existence of dexamethasone in the sample. This substance, as you are all fully aware by now, it is not a performance enhancement drug. Therefore, with this due process taking place, we are still at no liberty to reveal the name of the player. In the last council meeting, the council unanimously agreed to provide support in all aspects to this player. BM will work together with the Minister of Youth and Sport on this matter.
Taking a look back at another local story, ice cream manufacturers in the Jaffna district claim that there are ulterior motives behind the ban imposed on manufacturers in the district.
A storage facility for a famous ice cream manufacturer in the south is being built in Jaffna at present. Economically, we can see that when some companies gain brand power, they attempt to stifle all the other companies. We see this as a step in that direction. We face many economic hardships to establish our businesses. Their plan is to sell ice cream from the south and imported ice cream here. Even after we fulfill the conditions they impose on us, they reject our licenses. They only think about how they are going to close down our businesses. Meanwhile, on the 28th of October, the Northern Province Minister of Health, Dr. P. Sathyalingam, made the following statement to Newsfirst. Due to the population density of the Jaffna town, it is possible that wastewater could flow into the wells and contaminate the water there. At the same time, inspections have revealed traces of pesticides. However, when we made inquiries today, the Northern Province Health Director, Dr. S.R. Jude, rejected the notion that wastewater was flowing into the wells. She said that the ban in question was imposed considering the health and safety of the people in the area. She rejected that there were any ulterior motives behind the ban. The ban has been imposed on 59 companies. Jaffna District Health Director E. Ketheeswaran says the licenses of 29 companies have been reinstated. He added that samples from 9 manufacturers had been referred to Colombo and that legal action had been initiated against these businesses. However, the Jaffna District Food and Refrigerated Food Manufacturers Association says they have not been informed that 29 licenses have been reinstated. Northern Provincial Council Chairman CVK Sivanyanyam says that the NPC is prepared to appoint a panel of experts to investigate the matter if such a request is made.
Speaking of News First, shortly after this news story was telecast on the main news bulletin at 8 p.m. on our sister channel Shakti TV, the General Secretary of the Citizens Front, MP Jayashree Ranga, expressed the following views.
Ice cream.
I watched this news item on the bulletin tonight. During the war in the north and east, there were a large number of deposits in the banks and withdrawals had reduced. Today it is the reverse. Traders are distancing themselves from businesses. 3 prominent businessmen in Jaffna have committed suicide. The primary cause for this is that large companies go there and squeeze out the smaller companies. The Provincial Council Minister and the PHIs have differing accounts. This clearly shows us that large companies are being taken to Jaffna in order to consign the people of Jaffna to being consumers and not entrepreneurs. We see this as a conspiracy against the Tamil people. The Northern Provincial Council should take strict action on this. Why is it that people who neglected contagious diseases for so long have suddenly started talking about it? I believe that everyone should unite against this.
And finally, former Sri Lankan Test cricket captain Arjuna Ranatunga says that if children's sporting talents are to be developed, there must be proper appreciation of their efforts. He made this statement while speaking on the Sports First Mobitel Platinum Awards. The Sports First Mobitel Platinum Awards night will be held with much grandeur at Stein Studios, Ratmalana on the 30th of this month.
The Maharaja organization has always protected sport and has spoken on behalf of sport. It has constantly pointed out failings in sport in the country and has always engaged in work like this. The work being done at present to recognize talented athletes in the country is very important. When the children in the village achieve victory, they will only be encouraged to go further if they are given the proper appreciation. Furthermore, it encourages other children to go further. So in truth, this is very good. But it is not a company that should be doing it. It should be done by the government and the Ministry of Sports.
Well, that's a wrap for tonight. For the News First team, I'm Ramesh Rugal Bandara. Good night.